What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Saturday Standouts. My name is Caleb Skinner. You can follow me on Twitter at CHSNoel. Obviously, I'm not at my home tonight. I'm doing a little bit of laundry over at a buddy's place. But with me tonight, as always, is my good friend Ethan Carboni. How are you doing tonight, Ethan?
I'm very tired. Work sucks.
Yeah,
I'm happy to be talking football.
Yes, sir. We're going to be getting into a little bit of college football here. Before we get started, down below us, guys, you're going to see there on the ticker the Unwrapped Sports sponsors that we got going on. You can head over to mybookie.ag, start gambling, throw a little bit of money in there. Use code USN100 for double your first deposit. You put in $50, you get $50 of free play there at mybookie.ag. Head over to rxhemp.com. Use code rxhemp-USN for 10% off every single one of your purchases, guys. That's all natural CBD pain relief cream. You got sore back, sore knees, anything, go buy you some of that, rub it on there. It'll take away the pain. Nice little hot and cold remedy situation got going there. And then, of course, our Teespring shop. So head over to teespring.com/stores/unwrapped. Find all of your favorite shows, merchandise, and apparel there as well, guys. And then later I'll be going into our Patreon where you guys can earn a whole bunch of different things when it comes to giveaways and things of that nature. So tune into the show later for that. Without further ado, we're going to be talking college football here. That's what we do. And we're going to start off here with the big news coming out today. Obviously, Ethan, we had mentioned in our previous show that July 1st was going to be the cutoff really for the NCAA to make any moves, try and push this thing back before certain states were going to be allowed, players in certain states are going to be allowed starting to make money off of their name, image, and likeness. So the NCAA came out today, probably around 4 or 4:30, adopting an interim name, image, and likeness policy. It is not completely finished. They are still going to try and improve it. But let me just read you a little bit of what this policy reads. Individuals can engage in name, image, and likeness activities that are consistent with the law of the state where the school is located. Colleges and universities may be a resource for state law questions. College athletes who attend a school in a state without an NIL law can engage in this type of activity without violating NCAA rules related to name, image, and likeness. Individuals can use a professional services provider for NIL activities, which a lot of these schools have already started to put into place for their student athletes. And then student athletes should report NIL activities consistent with state law or school and conference requirements to their school. So whatever they end up doing, they have to report all of that information over to, the school, and it has to be cleared through the policies that the NCAA has set forth here. As of tomorrow, this all goes into effect. Obviously, that was going to happen anyways with certain states. Setting July 1st as the date. I know Florida was that was the date that was set for them. Any thoughts? We kind of saw this coming. We talked about it in depth last week, but just quick thoughts here, Ethan, before we get going and move forward with a pretty fun show that we're gonna have.
Well, I'm very happy for the players. They're gonna actually be able to have success with this, although the amount is crazy. No one knows. At the top players, the top schools, Oklahoma 5-star commit gets on campus. Hey, shoe company want near Tulsa, near wherever the hell Oklahoma's located. I'm blanking, but big shoe store wants to do a sponsorship with him. Hey, you shout us out. We'll send you 10 pairs of new Nike. Whatever. These players are going to be getting that. They're going to be getting money. It's great. I'm proud that the NCAA has finally done something right. But
yeah, I'm extremely happy. I'm extremely happy we've made it to this point, in college sports and with the NCAA as well. Let me just read you something that's out on Twitter that we have kind of seen happen the past couple weeks or so that, these college athletes are putting out there, whether it's, on a notepad writing or anything like that. But, it's kind of copy and pasted in a lot of the same things. It's reiterated over and over again. So these are what, players are putting out there to, prospective opportunities, people who are going to be looking at them to be able to bring them in for an opportunity to make some money and, market a company or so be it. So the players put out, according to the NCAA, starting July 1st, all student athletes have been granted permission to capitalize on our name, image, and likeness. When this goes into effect, student athletes are going to be able to brand ourselves and other business and companies, any local or any companies at all that want to use my social media as a platform to promote, do commercials, etc., to brand themselves. My DMs are open for business. Message me if interested. I think it's very well written. by the athletes being able to go and do this and everything. So I'm looking forward to the future of what's going to happen when it comes to name, image, and likeness. Like I said before, it's not over with, it's not done, but as of tomorrow, we're going to start seeing this become a very popular thing and start seeing things happen with these college and student athletes.
I already have a player in my DMs, so big things coming.
Yeah, it'll be interesting because I personally work for a small local business here in Tallahassee, Florida that deals with merchandise and apparel. And so I don't know if we've actually started looking into that yet or not. I haven't spoken with our operations manager or our owner to necessarily go over if that's going to be the case, but it would be awesome, to bring in, a four-state player, say for instance, into our business, have them promote our business while also being able to promote themselves, and maybe give them a little bit of a payday. So something that's really cool that's going on there. Perry coming in here and saying pay the players. Completely agree. That is something that has needed to happen for a while. Now, what's up, Michael? How's it going? We're doing well. We're about to get into some fun stuff here, Michael. So hang around with us. But yeah, any other last thoughts on name, image, and likeness being passed by the NCAA effective tomorrow?
Not really, but if Perry's saying pay the players, how much are you willing to shell out so we can get that Clemson quarterback interview, Perry? I need a number. I need to make an offer.
That would be nice, wouldn't it, get ukulele on here? But
that'd be insane if we could get any player of that caliber on here. But
yeah, it would be nice. But that's just a quick tidbit on the fallout from what we had talked about last week and what the NCAA was planning to do when it came to the NIL. Without further ado, we're going to move on here, and we're going to jump into a way too early top 25 for you guys. We're not going to dig into conferences yet. We're going to get into that, as we get closer into the season. We're going to be trying to get interviews. We were supposed to have one today. Unfortunately, that kind of fell through. But that's something that Ethan's been working heavily on trying to accomplish. But we're pulling this way too early top 25 list from USA Today. So if you guys want to go out there and check it out, go ahead and look up, USA Today, college football way too early top 25 for the 2021 season. We'll just start with the top five, or we'll start with the top three teams here that are on the list, Ethan. And number one, Alabama coming off national championship, obviously going to stay there. Number two, Oklahoma, Spencer Rattler coming back, and number three, Ohio State. What are your thoughts early on the top three? Is that where they're fitting? And give us a little bit of an outlook on if there's anybody leaving, who's coming in. What are we going to expect from these three teams?
Looking at Alabama at number one, you got Bryce Young and you got Mechie as that quarterback wide receiver duo. Very different from Jones and Smith, Jones and Waddle. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with that Alabama team because, as Pate and many other college football analysts have said, including me and you, Alabama's defense is going to be the reason this team is successful this year.
Yeah,
their offense is young. It's going to struggle throughout a couple of weeks. But overall, that defense will have to carry the load and not allow a couple games where the other team gets into it with them.
Yeah, they're going to have to rely heavily on their defense. I agree with you. I mean, just looking at the losses that they did have, from this past season, Mac Jones gone, Najee Harris gone, Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, Alex Leatherwood, Landon Dickerson. I don't know if Deontay Brown left or not. Dylan Moses gone, Patrick Surtain. And, those are big, key guys to that core of that Alabama team. You were talking about, Bryce Young coming in there as dual threat quarterback from the 2020 ESPN 300. Seems to be, the guy moving forward. They brought in Houston Texans coach Bill O'Brien, former Houston Texans coach Bill O'Brien, to be, the guy to replace Steve Sarkisian as the offensive coordinator there in Alabama. So you got a bunch of moving pieces here. Running back room seems like it's still going to be strong. Brian Robinson Jr., McClellan, and then Trey Sanders as well. But, he's got his injury problems as well. Wide receiver, Mechie is going to be interesting. And then sliding him there next to him is Bolden. So there's a lot to, look at Alabama and say they have the possibility to be that number one team at the end of the year again. Putting them at number one to start the season does not bother me at all. They're going to have to rely heavily on that defense. But when it comes to Alabama, you look at their defense first, and then everything else falls in line. So I like them being at number one as well. Looking at number two, here we have Oklahoma.
All right. Going into that, you have first off, you have the potential Heisman, the leading favorite for Heisman, going with my personal favorite for the Bolitnikoff with Marvin Mims, who's only a sophomore and had a hell of a freshman year. Pairing it with one of the top offensive lines, which has 3 seniors on it. That's the projected starters. And overall, that Oklahoma offense is just killer, not even going into Kennedy Brooks, the redshirt junior running back, who I'm going to try and find his stats. But I believe, he opted out last year. So he's coming back with a vengeance in his heart, and he wants to win that Big 12 over other teams which are looking to win it. And in that defense, player to watch for me, that's tough. I'm probably going to go with Nick Bonito, the edge rusher.
Okay. I like that. Looking at where they finished last year, 9-2. They returned 6 on the offense, 8 on defense, 2 on special teams. Lost 3 guys off of the offensive line, but are also replacing them. So that's with guys who also got playing time. So that's good. And they did lose Ramondre Stevenson, Ronnie Perkins, Trey Brown, Trey Norwood, and obviously Charleston Rambo left and transferred and is now at Miami. Did not have the season everybody thought he was supposed to have last year. And that kind of went towards, a different wide receiver, I forget his name. But with the return of Spencer Rattler, this is his year to make that leap, be able to be the top Heisman contender that he is obviously the favorite to win. You bring back a 1,000-yard rusher, maybe in Brooks, being able to do that since he opted out last season. He's coming back, and he was a 1,000-yard rusher in 2019. So the offense looks as strong as ever for Oklahoma. This might be perhaps the best or most talented, I'd rather say most talented here, quarterback that Pat Riley has been able to have under his tutelage. So it's going to be exciting now this extra year with Spencer Rattler. Is he going to be able to cut down, be able to go undefeated here? Oklahoma hasn't won a national championship in 2 decades now. It's been a long time. Defensively, you look at guys like Alex Grinch, or not guys like Alex Grinch, but what Alex Grinch has been able to do from the defensive coordinator position for an Oklahoma team that has to go up against, Big 12 offenses, which he's done a very good job at. So they ranked 2nd in the Big 12 in scoring defense last year and in run defense and 3rd in total defense. So they did very well. I expect that to continue. They don't lose a whole lot on the defensive side of the ball. So I like them sitting here at number 2 coming into the season as well.
Me as well. Moving to that number 3 spot, you got the freshmen CJ Stroud, Kyle McCord, and Jack Miller as 3 freshmen or redshirt freshmen starting competing quarterbacks for that Ohio State team.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It truly is, because you got to look at the rest of that. You have the best 2 receiver duo in college football, Olave and Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
You have a solid offensive line. Obviously, you're the Big Ten, you need one. And if you're Ohio State, you're always going to have one. And then you have Master Teague and Meehan Williams. Both very solid running backs. People are saying Teague might be out by mid-season, and he'll be the backup. We'll see if that's true. Overall, they have a very good team. This is Ohio State. The ball is going to be spread. They're going to run a hell of an offense, and as usual, they're going to have a hell of a defense, led by Dallas Gantz and Craig Young at the linebacker positions. And overall, when's the last time Ohio State had a bad pass rush? Can you remember? Never?
No, I can't tell you.
And their entire projected defense, aside from one player, is going to be an upperclassman. So,
yeah.
And the entire defensive line is grad transfers, juniors, and a senior. So
they didn't lose a whole lot.
they did not.
They lost obviously Justin Fields and Trey Sermon. They lost a couple of linemen as well, a couple of linebackers, and Sean Wade, who did not perform last season like everybody thought he was supposed to. Your biggest loss here obviously is Justin Fields. That's going to be a huge replacement factor, but again, you're returning 2 of the top wide receivers in Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. And what you know about Ohio State is you don't necessarily have to have a great quarterback behind your under center or behind center in shotgun because their wide receivers are so good that they're always open. You don't have to necessarily be a guy who's super accurate or anything like that. Your wide receivers are going to help you out tremendously. The seamless transition from Urban Meyer to Ryan Day went as smooth as it possibly could. It's going to continue. Defense is returning. Edge rushers are going to be insane. I mean, it's going to be the biggest question here for Ohio State is going to be that quarterback position. You talked about, Master Teague being back there, and the running back's not really, a real streaky guy or a guy who's going to wow you, but he's a very good back. But the real question mark here for Ohio State comes from the quarterback position. Do you go with C.J. Stroud, who is the number 2 pocket passer in ESPN 100? Where you go with freshman from last year, Jack Miller, third, who set, an Arizona high school record with 115 passing touchdowns. So that's where your biggest question mark's going to come into play. But again, it shouldn't be that huge a question mark. You go with obviously the better guy, and he'll be able to put up the numbers that Ohio State needs to put up. I see them being here at number 3. And then after that, we start to see these other teams that are right on the borderline, but there's still question marks. And we'll just round out the top. We'll go from 4 to 6 here. We'll just do another 3. And at number 4, we have Clemson, 5, Georgia, 6, Ohio State. Go ahead and take us away with the number 4 team here on the USA Today poll with Clemson.
Ooh, all right. That's a tough one. This is actually probably the most confusing team. Just because you're losing one of the top 3 players to never win a Heisman. You're losing some of your top production in the best ACC running back ever, stat-wise. Mm-hmm. Not talent-wise, but stat-wise.
Correct.
So you're relying on now Lynn Dixon, DJ Ugalale. I know I pronounced that wrong. I don't care. And Justin Ross. And Ross is only back here because of that injury.
Mm-hmm.
So Clemson, they got lucky. Without Ross, this team, I don't think, makes it. EJ Williams and Ross are going to have to carry it. The offensive spectrum, defensive-wise, I'm not even sure. Brian Brees was a killer as a freshman. Number 1 overall player. He'll continue to wreak havoc. And I personally think he probably could have went to the draft and gotten drafted in the 2nd round if they were allowed to. But
yeah, I think the thing with Clemson here is, ultimately their downfall this past season, I think is a glaring example of inexperience and, very young players. A lot of them were freshmen, sophomores, guys who weren't older, other than, those seniors, Travis Etienne, Trevor Lawrence, guys like Darion Kendrick, who left as well. But they pretty much bring back their whole entire defense, 10 starters on the defense here that are returning, 5 on the offense. So that's a good look for them. Obviously, you lose Trevor Lawrence, Etienne, those are going to be your replacements, but you're bringing in, the number 1 overall quarterback in DJ Ugalele. He threw last year 781 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks in 2 games when Trevor Lawrence was sidelined with COVID-19. Justin Ross, like you mentioned, back from a neck injury, and Joseph Ngata, he's going to be there as well in the wide receiver room. Or there's not really one person you can kind of point out who's going to be, the guy to take over for Travis Etienne at the tailback position. So that'll be kind of a focus you want to look at on the offensive side of the ball for Clemson. When it comes to their defense, like I said before, they're returning 10 guys. 6 of their 14 leading tacklers last year were sophomores and freshmen. So, like I mentioned before, the inexperience, the youngness of this Clemson Tigers defense really showed last year, and that's why they kind of weren't able to show up in those big moments that they needed to. But they have a fairly, typical, easy path to the college football playoff this year, which is a good thing for them, especially with a young quarterback. Notre Dame, they're not having to play them because Notre Dame's not going to play in the ACC this year. They opened the season against Georgia, but they also have to play North Carolina, and then after that, they don't really have a whole lot to go off of. So I could really see Clemson even moving their way up as we get further into the season, but starting them here at number 4 is pretty solid. I could even see them being starting at 5 just based off of the unknown at quarterback and what that offense is going to be able to do.
And moving to number 5, who plays Clemson, week 1, Georgia. I started this off by saying if Georgia beats Clemson week 1, I think that they can beat Alabama, and I think that they can win the national title. This is their best chance to win it, returning so much talent. They have it. They have the best quarterback room in the entire NCAA, with JT Daniels starting it off. Then you have Carson Beck, who was a very good quarterback 2 years ago in high school. Mm-hmm. Brock Vandagriff, another insane quarterback. And then you have Stetson Bennett, who, while not great, he could start on 70% of the college football teams. I want to say 7, something like that. And just going into their offense, you got Zamir White, very good running back. You got Jermaine Burton and Curious Jackson, 2 very good wide receivers. Then something that I found very interesting, it looks like Eric Gilbert, the tight end transfer, is going to be their wide receiver number 2.
Yeah, because Pickens is injured, correct?
Yep. So Darnell Washington should get the start tight end, and Eric Gilbert might be playing a Kyle Pitts type role.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget about Arian Smith either. I mean, he likes to be, kind of looked over a little bit as well. But their wide receiver room is stacked. If one of these quarterbacks isn't able to produce with the amount of talent surrounding them, then that'll become a huge issue for Georgia.
For sure. And then looking at that defense, what are they known for? Linebackers. Just Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, Adam Anderson, Jalen Kimber, who is a freshman. He's going to have a great year as a corner. And then looking at the other corner, Amir Speed, who's a redshirt senior. They got depth, they have seniority, and they have a young talent also on this entire team. I'm looking forward to Georgia. I think that they win the SEC, and I think that they win the national title potentially.
Oh, that's interesting. Georgia, the question is, can they ever win the big one? Can they ever get past that hump? That's the question marks that always come into it with Georgia every single season. Are they going to be able to beat Florida? Are they going to be able to beat in Alabama? Are they going to be able to beat Clemson that they had to face right off the bat? It's going to be a real question mark, and it's going to be a real, pressure cooker for their defense in particular. I mean, you lose Tyson Campbell and Eric Stokes, and that's really what I want to point out too. Where are they going to fit, or who are they going to fit into those cornerback positions to be able to replace those two? Because both of those guys were absolutely locked down on the outside last year for them. So that's going to be a huge question mark heading into the season. I do like them at 5, though. I think they can have a chance to win the SEC. But like you said, linebacker room's absolutely studded. They're returning Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, and they are losing DJ Daniel, who is another one of their corners. He's absolutely leaving. So where their talent is going to have to be shown is they have tons of talent, but where they're going to have to build a little bit of depth and kind of rotate guys in to be able to figure out what pieces fit right is going to be at that cornerback spot. And that'll be, ultimately the thing that, either makes or breaks them heading into next season and throughout the whole entire season next year. And with that, we'll move on to our number 6 team, and this is Iowa State. This is a team that a lot of people had high expectations for last year. Didn't necessarily start very well for them, but they ended off the season very strong. Obviously, Brock Purdy coming back for this is his 5th year. I feel like he's been there forever. Breece Hall coming back as well. So that offense is going to be, running at a very high potency. Both of those guys, you could even talk about to be in the Heisman conversation at some point. 5 offensive line starters all returning. Senior left tackle Sean Foster decided to come back. Tight end decided to come back as well. Everybody just seems like they're coming back for this team. They didn't lose anybody besides Jaquan Bailey and Lawrence White, and they brought in a couple of other guys, but not a whole lot. So this is pretty much the same Iowa State Cyclones team that we have seen the past few seasons coming back. They went 9-3 last year. I expect them to maybe even better that, go maybe 10-2 or maybe even 11-1. I expect Iowa State to give Oklahoma a nice run for their money there in the Big 12, but I like them sitting here at number 6.
Same here. Purdy returning is huge. If he had the year people expected to last year, he's a 2nd, 3rd round pick. That didn't happen. He choked it away. And now Breece Hall's the best running back in the NCAA. Purdy's going to rely on that little option that they run, and he's going to rely on having 3 tight ends that I believe are all 6'6" or taller.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty nice little red zone offense. You got either the option or, all right, I'll throw it to my 6'8" tight end, 6'9" tight end. That's a pretty nice guy you got there. So, like you said, you got Sean Foster returning. That's a huge key piece on that offensive line. And then you got the senior, Ioma Uwarzuki. Oh, God, I cannot pronounce anything today, but it's okay, because he is going to kill every single team in that Big 12, and I feel bad for Rattler for having to go up against him. Because Rattler, that's the one game where Rattler gets smacked around.
Yeah, that could be the game where, it's one that you have to watch because it's just going to be a dogfight. So that'll be fun to see how that turns out in the Big 12.
Really will. All right.
And moving on, we'll go 7 through 10 here. Cincinnati at number 7, A&M at 8, Notre Dame at 9, coming out of the ACC and going back to independent, and then Florida coming in at 10 after the loss of Kyle Trask.
Yeah. What can we say about Cincinnati?
I'll give you one name.
Desmond Ridder.
Desmond Ridder. That's all you should need to know about Cincinnati.
It is, but at the same time, Javon Hicks is insane at that safety position. So I'm excited for Cincinnati Bearcat football. I think that they will be for sure the best Group 5 team. I have one pick that might be able to dethrone them from that title. We will see, but is the 12th team playoff going into effect this year?
The 12th team? No, it's not. So we're still in the 4.
All right, I was going to say, if we're in the 12, I think 2 Group of 5 teams finish inside the top 12 this year. Maybe 3.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens in Cincinnati. Obviously, Desmond Ridder, the big name, a Heisman, contender coming into next season. The real question marks when it comes to Cincinnati is they're going to have to replace 3 offensive linemen from this past season, as well as some very key pieces from their defense, losing Jarrell White, James Wiggins, Derek Forrest, and Elijah Ponder, all from that defensive side of the ball. Those are big names that are leaving, guys who are able to pretty much shore up a Cincinnati defense that is not very much known for their defense. But another thing that they're going to have to deal with their defense is that their defensive coordinator from last year, Marcus Freeman, decided to leave to go be the defensive coordinator for Notre Dame. So they're bringing in a new DC. So the real big question marks here for Cincinnati come in on the offensive line to be able to protect Ridder, and then on the defensive side of the ball as well from top head coach, from defensive coordinator down to the players on the field. So that'll be something to watch. But Desmond Ridder is going to do his thing. He's going to be able to put up huge numbers. Having him sit here at 7 might be a little bit of a push for me. I'd probably move him down maybe a couple or a few spots, but still keep him inside the top 10. But 7 doesn't quite bug me that much.
I have a question for you, Caleb. Hypothetically, Cincinnati goes undefeated, 12-0 in the regular season. Wins their conference, whatever. If no team in the Power 5 goes undefeated, they all have at least 1 loss. Does Cincinnati squeak into that top 4 playoff?
I don't think so. We've seen it in the past with UCF. They did it not too long ago, and
right. But there's an undefeated team that year, if I'm not mistaken.
They were the only undefeated team in a group of 5.
They were.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the group of 5. I'm talking Power 5. If no
Power 5.
If no Power 5 team is undefeated.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Then possibly I would think it would have to be more teams with 2 losses. I think maybe if you just have one Power 5 school with 1 loss and then the rest of them have 2 losses, and there's an undefeated Power or group of 5 team like Cincinnati, then you could see that possibly being the case. But the odds of that happening are very slim, in my opinion. Just usually it doesn't work out that way. If it does, I'd be super ecstatic to see, a team like Cincinnati who would go undefeated in a group of 5 make it in there, as long as they're, legit enough to be able to make it. I mean, people are trying to make the assumption for BYU or things or teams like that last year. Coastal Carolina obviously got a lot of hype too. So I mean, there's a lot that can go into it. It has all the chips have to fall right for that to happen, but I think there's too many question marks surrounding the Cincinnati team for that to happen. So we'll see how it ends up.
Yep. Moving to Texas A&M. That's I'm not even sure what to think. They're losing out on the quarterback.
You're losing Kellen Mond, yeah, but I don't think that's really a huge question mark when it comes to a team that is head coached by Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo Fisher has been able to replace a quarterback numerous times, whether they've transformed into a great NFL quarterback, that's to be seen. But he is really good at college quarterbacks and being able to replace them. We've seen it over and over again. EJ Manuel coming from Christian Ponder, then Jameis Winston coming from EJ Manuel, then DeAndre Francois coming from Jameis Winston. So that's just from Florida State. So now you got to look at it from Texas A&M standpoint. Who is going to fill that spot? There's going to be probably a battle between freshman Zach Calzada and Haynes King to battle for that QB job in the spring. Other than that, they're not losing a whole lot other than on their offensive line. So that's going to be what you really need to pay attention to, is going to be that offense. How is Jimbo Fisher going to be able to turn that around? Obviously, Isaiah Spiller coming back, Devontae Agney, utility guy, a nice Smith and tight end Jaden Weidermeyer give the Aggies a nice core of positional skill players to be able to come back. So it's going to be really down there in the trenches and from the quarterback position for Jimbo. Jimbo's defense was legit. The Texas A&M defense was legit last year. They were able to probably keep them in games that they didn't deserve to be in. So defense is going to be fine. The real question marks here for Texas A&M is that offensive line. They did go 9-1 last year. Their one loss coming to, I believe it was Alabama. So, that's going to be a battle that he has to deal with every year, being in the SEC West. So I like them here at 8. I think they are definitely worthy of a top 10 ranking. You can maybe even switch them with Cincinnati, move them up to 7. But yeah, I like where Texas A&M's at.
Also, key point: they have the best running back in the SEC in Isaiah Spiller.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree with that statement, that he's the best?
I would agree with that statement. Yes.
All right, thank you. I said he was the best last year, aside from Najee Harris, and a lot of people disagreed. So,
I mean, he's clear cut the guy. In the SEC this year, there's not a lot of big names returning in the SEC for the running back position. There's a lot of running backs from the SEC that left last year, so it opens up that hole for him to take that mantle.
Yep. Moving into the next team, Notre Dame, I believe.
Yes, sir. Notre Dame here at number 9.
All right. You got the transfer Jack Cohn from Wisconsin, transferring from seeing Graham Mertz perform very well, not wanting to compete, not wanting to hold him back, not wanting the potential of needing to transfer out, transfers to Notre Dame, and transfers to a contending team. Because I think we all know Wisconsin's not competing with Ohio State if he was there.
Mm.
But Notre Dame might be able to if they end up facing Ohio State in the playoff. Is a Jack Cohn's play style and Notre Dame's play style. They fit hand in hand. Pocket passer, hand the ball off, just perfect. The Notre Dame offensive lines are always good. Notre Dame tight ends with Michael Mayer, always good. Avery Davis is going to be their number 1 receiver. That's going to be a very interesting. Already graduated, I believe. And then looking at that defense, I don't think I see a single. I see one underclassman. That's just because he's a sophomore, and he's not going to be on the field as much as the other safeties and defensive backs.
Yep.
So,
and I don't.
Seniority.
I'm just not sold on them being in the top 10 here. They're going through a whole facelift on the offensive side of the ball. Not only did they lose, their quarterback, their signal caller that's been there forever, but they lost pretty much their whole entire offensive line. That's going to be, you did mention Notre Dame always does have good offensive lines, but these guys aren't going to, they're going to have to take some bumps and bruises to actually figure it out as the season gets going. I think 9's probably pretty high. I would probably move them somewhere around 13 is where I would put them because of the amount of talent that they're having to replace on the offensive line in the trenches. A new defensive coordinator coming in, like I mentioned earlier, and he's going to have to, give a facelift to the defensive, line as well. There's a lot of moving pieces here for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. We saw them get, spanked 31-14 in the semifinal in the Rose Bowl by Alabama. So I think, them starting off that high, there could be a lot of hype coming into that first game of the season against Florida State at Florida State in Doak Campbell Stadium at night on prime time. You don't know if this quarterback's going to be ready, if these linemen are going to be ready. I know Florida State's going to pack, the stadium. Mike Norvell is really hyping up Florida State fans for this game just based off of recruiting, really. So I know there's a lot of people who are excited for this game. It's, Notre Dame, Florida State, it's always going to be a good game no matter what. Even last year when Florida State, or 2 years ago, or last year when Florida State went to Notre Dame, they got beat pretty handily, but it was the best that Florida State might have looked in a loss last year. Showed a lot of fight. So I expect this Florida State team to be improved. So I think Notre Dame might get a scare out the gates. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but I don't like them being ranked as high as number 9 to start the season. That's for sure.
I see where you're coming from with that. But at the same time, for that first game, 30-point win for Notre Dame.
Okay, wow. Thanks. Really going against me there. But we'll move on.
I'll do it for everyone.
We'll move on here. Number 10, Florida. Coming in number 10 after losing Kyle Trask. What are your thoughts, Ethan?
I think that they have a top 3. It's either 3 or 4 quarterback in the SEC.
Wow. You really have that much, faith in Emory Jones coming in and taking over.
I think that he needs to, and I think he has the playing style, not Tebow-esque, but he's mobile. He doesn't need to stand in the pocket. He can run around. That's going to be a fun offense to watch. Although they're losing the key parts in their offense with their number 1 receiver going to the NFL, and then their number 1 receiver going to the NFL. I say number 1 for both because their Kyle Pitts is the best receiver, and their actual wide receiver number 1 went to the NFL. So. Yeah,
well, not to mention their number 2 wide receiver also went to the NFL. So exactly. You're losing pretty much all your weapons. You're losing your quarterback. This is going to be a real interesting thing for Dan Mullen to do, especially with the way that he ended the season last year. The way they started, everybody was talking about Kyle Trask being a Heisman contender, Florida possibly being in the college football playoff, and then they just tapered off and didn't really do anything, and now they're having to facelift pretty much every skill position other than running back on their offense. That's really where this is going to come to question. Florida always has a decent defense. Todd Grantham hasn't necessarily lived up to the hype that he was supposed to have coming in. But, that is what it's going to be, and maybe he's, kind of got it figured out there over the spring. But I think the real big question mark here comes into play on the opposite side of the ball. I don't have trust in Emory Jones. I haven't seen enough from him. I have yet to see any of these other wide receivers that are going to be able to step up, especially with the weapons that they did lose. Kadarius Toney, human joystick. Kyle Pitts, just an unimaginable freak of an athlete and talent. At 10, I don't think they should be at 10. I think maybe North Carolina. I think a North Carolina and Oregon deserve to be up, and even in Iowa deserve to be up higher, and a Wisconsin even deserve to be up higher than Florida ranked right now.
I think you put Florida at 16 or 17.
Yeah, I think honestly that's where I would have them is probably 15 or lower.
Yeah, I do like Emory Jones. I think this is going to be the year. I watched the most college football ever. I'm going into a senior in high school. I'm getting more into these kids because they are my age. So let's see it. Let's see what Florida can do. I'm excited to see if this is going to be the year that they can dethrone Alabama. I say that very sarcastically because we all know they're not going to. But Nick Saban needs to get COVID, not be in. Bill O'Brien needs to get COVID. Every player needs to get COVID for Florida for Florida to win that game.
I could see Florida actually having a very down year, just based off of all their losses. So I don't like them at 10, but let's move on here. And I'm just going to shout out these teams 11 through 15. We don't necessarily have to deep dive into each and every one of them, but, give me your highlights. Who you think should be ranked higher? Who you think should be ranked lower here? At 11, we got LSU. 12, North Carolina. Sam Howell returning there for them. LSU still trying to figure out quarterback situation, but they got awesome depth at every single position, skill players out the wazoo. 13, Wisconsin. You're talking about Graham Mertz, guys coming back. 14, Oregon, who is doing what Oregon usually does. And then 15 here, we got Iowa, who is Iowa every year. So, give me somebody you think, or a team that you think should be higher, a team that you see drop down here, or do you think these all kind of fit perfectly in?
I think Iowa should fall a bit just because I don't trust Petrus. But before I go anymore, I wanted to shout out Graham Mertz. He has his own logo, own brand. That's great. That's exactly what the NCAA needs. They need more players with that. And North Carolina, simple as this, Sam Howell. Like, do you really think that they're going to let Clemson walk all over them? Is I don't.
Yeah,
and for
don't
LSU, I really don't get the hype behind the LSU. Can you tell me? Miles Brennan, Max Johnson are competing. I think Brennan won it already. Like, if I'm looking at their wide receivers, I don't trust it. I really don't. Like, only piece I enjoy on this team is Eli Ricks and Derek Stingley. And Stingley, he'll play offense. What's he? So what? Like, you're going to put him in just for show when you're up on teams. Am I wrong with that? He'll play a bit of offense. Dontari Posen at quarterback throws a touchdown. That's what it's going to be like to me. They're going to put him in when they're up. They're going to put him in to screw around, have some fun. Stingley and Ricks are going to lead this defense, this secondary. They are DBU. They're going to have fun. They're going to get a lot of interceptions. And that's going to be the highlight of this team. I really don't understand why LSU is anywhere close. I think at best they're going to fall in the 20s. I wouldn't be surprised if they dropped out of top 25 by end of the year.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't necessarily see the hype with LSU. I do understand that they do bring back a whole lot of pieces. Their defense is going to be, stifling like it usually is. But, after what they looked like last year, what makes you change your mind on what they're going to look like this year? Not a whole lot has changed for them. So it's just going to be kind of, are they going to be able to grow, or are they going to fall apart again? So I'd like LSU to maybe even be ranked at like 17 right now. That's something for them. I like, North Carolina at 12. That's a good spot for them. You could even move them up to maybe as high as 8. Wisconsin as well. I like them a whole lot. Oregon, I like what they're doing. Iowa, I think is perfect at 15. But you look at North Carolina, they're going to have big games on their schedule that, they didn't show up for last year. They took a really bad loss last year to Florida State. They're going to get a chance to, not have that happen this year. And Sam Howell is going to have to really put on in his Heisman shoes for them to be successful, because, it is a different North Carolina day and age for North Carolina. They aren't the North Carolina of the past, but they still aren't up there with the upper echelon teams like the Clemsons, Alabamas, all of those quite yet. They're trying to get there. So we'll see where they end up. Wisconsin, I love what Wisconsin is doing. Talking about, Michael Penix, obviously coming back for them. Graham Mertz there at Indiana. That's some names to throw in there as well. But I'm really liking this 11 through 15 range of teams: LSU, North Carolina, Wisconsin, Oregon, and Iowa. Higher on the Oregon, the Wisconsin, and North Carolina than I am of LSU and Iowa. I think that 12 through 14 range has a real shot at making some noise when it comes to making, their name and putting their name into the college football playoff conversation as we get into the season.
Agreed. Moving into that next team really quickly, all I want to say is, doesn't that feel like Sean Clifford's been at Penn State for like a decade?
Yeah, but I feel like that always happens with Penn State quarterbacks, does it not? You just feel like McSorley felt like he was there forever. Same thing.
Like, he's redshirt junior this year. He's coming back next year. He still has 2 more years of eligibility, right? 3? Something? This is crazy.
I'm trying to find it real quick, but yeah, it's something crazy. Well, he did get that extra year, so
yeah, that's what I mean. This is gonna be very funny. Like, I don't know what to expect. It's Penn State, so
yeah, I don't know what to expect with Penn State either. They had an awful record last year, 4-5. Pretty much James Franklin fired his offensive coordinator, Kirk Sriracha, hired former Texas offensive coordinator Mike Yurcich. So that's going to be interesting. Sean Clifford coming back, Kane coming back, who was lost to an injury. Journey Brown also got injured as well last year, so he'll be coming back. So they're going to have some weapons. Defensive line is going to need to be rebuilt. They lost Pat Fryermuth, who was one of their weapons down in the end zone. Biggest question mark here comes to their defense, mainly, their defensive line and their linebacker room when you lose Shaka Tony and Jason Owe. Those are pretty big names on the line to lose. But other than that, I like them here at 22. Maybe that gives or not 22, excuse me, at 16. Maybe that kind of gives them a chip on their shoulder moving ahead.
You never know. I'm excited to watch. Like, the Penn State's being ranked this high after that crappy of a season. I want to see them. I personally think that they should have been unranked and proved their way up. Yes, they are a good team. On paper, they're a good team, but you could have moved all those other teams up one and then thrown in another team that's looking good.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to put Penn State anywhere, I probably would put them probably in the range of 20 to 20 or 22 to 24. One of those three spots right there. But continuing on, let's just rattle off these last names. Since we don't have a whole lot of time left, we have at 17 Indiana, 18 Miami, 19 USC, South California, excuse me, not Carolina. 20 Arizona State, coming off of all this drama that's going on with their head coaching staff and breaking rules in terms of the dead period when it comes to recruiting. 21 Oklahoma State, the Fighting Gundies. 22 Texas. 23 Coastal Carolina, sliding in there after their amazing season last year. 24 Washington and 25 Louisiana Lafayette. What are your thoughts on these final 9 teams that we got?
Well, in all honesty, I'm looking at that 25 spot because I'm a huge fan of Louisiana Lafayette. I think that they have good potential to go undefeated this year. I see 3 challenge games, first one being Texas week 1. I think they can handle it. It's Texas. Texas is going up against one of the strongest, and most balanced teams in the entire NCAA. Very strong defense, strong run game. Has a 5th-year quarterback now because of COVID. If they didn't have that quarterback, I'd say that Texas is the easy win. I think Louisiana Lafayette could potentially go undefeated and win the Sun Belt. Only other challenge game I see is that Liberty game. That's going to be my game of the year prediction.
Okay, I like that.
Then I just really skipped to the end because I love Louisiana Lafayette. So
yeah, you're good.
That's going to be one of the teams I follow throughout the year. But moving on. Back down to 18, I believe, Miami. Derek King. That's the only name that you need to hear for this team. Mm-hmm. I know there are more. Zach McLeod obviously is one, but Derek King, he's going to have a field day this year. I wouldn't be surprised. I think Miami goes 10-2 this year.
I mean, as long as he's healthy, we saw him
I'm not predicting injuries at this point.
Yeah, so I mean, you saw him get injured last year a little bit, or at the end of the season, and so he's got to be healthy coming into this season, and they might have a chance to make noise. They do have to play Alabama to start the season, so that's not really great or what you want to really come into the season to do. You saw Florida State do it 4 or 5 years back, and it didn't turn out too well. For Florida State, so we'll see how Miami handles that. I think I would drop Miami maybe a little bit. Just I'm not really sure their edges, their defensive lines moving around, but they're a good team. A team I like where they're at and probably should be higher is Indiana. Like I was talking about their quarterback earlier, they're really on the come up. I think USC could probably be higher as well. Keaton Slovis there, and USC is starting to make a little bit of noise. They had a great season last year. Obviously, they run a lot of close games, but try and look and see if they take a next step. A team that you had mentioned taking Penn State out of the top 25. I don't mind you doing that as long as I can throw in this name to add into the top 25. The Liberty Flames.
Yes, thank you. I was a huge fan of Liberty for the past, ever since they beat Mississippi State, I believe, in March Madness because I won a $50 bet with my friend. So after that happened, I became a Liberty Flames fan. And now there's so much hype around them and Malik Willis, I'm slowly dropping off just because I don't like when everyone gets on my team. like if Illinois starts doing good, I'm gonna stop following Illinois football for a little bit. So in the next century, when Illinois gets a 10-win season, I'll be very happy, and then the next year I won't.
Yeah.
But one more Group of 5 team in here that has, I think, the second best quarterback in the entire Group of 5, and Grayson McCall, the Coastal Carolina Chandeliers. What a year from them last year, first off.
That was amazing.
That was amazing. And I think that they can really just do it again. Entire defense returning, I'm pretty sure. Or at the very least, all upperclassmen.
Mm-hmm.
Have the experience. Only real, like, you have graduated seniors on the offensive line. Everyone's returning. This is going to be a big year. App State, Louisiana Lafayette. App State's falling off a tiny bit, but they're still going to be good. But it's going to be them, Coastal, and Louisiana for the Sun Belt.
Yeah, Sun Belt is making some noise.
I'm saying that they're the best football conference in the Group of 5.
Yeah, they definitely could be. I would not argue that with you at all. AAC obviously always, can have that conversation as well based off of the teams that are in there. But a couple overrated teams that I see that tends to be the question mark every single year: Arizona State, Oklahoma State, and Texas. Washington, you can maybe even throw in there as well. Is Texas going to be back? We never know. That's always the ordeal. Arizona State, they always seem to be right there in the conversation and then just kind of fall out. Oklahoma State, they have a lot to prove coming off of a subpar season last year that they didn't have as great of a year. But, Gundy's back to his gunslinging ways now that Chuba Hubbard's gone, so he's not running the ball as much. He's going to be able to let the young quarterback sling the ball. They got 3 quarterbacks last year. 2 of them got hurt, but all 3 of them got playing time. So it's going to be interesting to see which one of them, gets the nod to start the season. So I like them at 21. I like Texas at 22. I like Washington 24. I like Arizona State 20. You could probably switch any of those with one another, and it'd be completely fine. But with that being said, any last thoughts on this way too early top 25, Ethan, before we go ahead and log off?
Honestly, not really. Just because, as we just said, way too early. So we have no idea what the hell's going to happen. Like, for all we know, Nick Saban could come out, retire because some BS reason. I don't know. Bryce Young could tear his ACL first snap, and the backup could do it the very next play, and Alabama's out. You have no idea what the hell's going to happen, especially not this early. And all we know for now is that college football is coming back within the next couple months, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, I'm very excited for it. I think you said something like 90 days is where we're hovering around that time frame or whatever. So I'm really excited. I know it's way too early, top 25, but it's exciting to talk about these kinds of things. Ethan and I are going to get together. We're going to try and get some interviews going, try and get some of these guys locked in for next week and maybe a couple of the following weeks afterwards before we start diving into, looking at specific conferences, looking at specific, position groups when it comes to looking ahead towards the NFL draft next year. Who are the top position players in those position groups? And you kind of giving you guys the household names that you're going to need to look forward to this upcoming college football season. With that being said, guys, you can follow me at CHS Noel on Twitter. Follow at Saturday Standouts on Twitter as well. Ethan, any shout outs? I know you got, all kinds of different shows and things going on. So go ahead and shout them out. Let the people know what you do, the amount of grind that you put in. Let them know.
Yeah. Check out at Ethan_Carboni on Twitter. Check out at ATR Creating Madness on Twitter, at _Creating Madness on Insta. Check out Creating Madness' latest episode. That was our best interview. Former Penn State player, has crazy stories. We talked about one of his good friends, Greg Oden, if you know that name, former first overall pick in the NBA draft. Just go check that out. Easily best interview I've ever done.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff. Like I said, Ethan is one of the biggest grinders out there. Guy really puts forth, the most effort that I've ever seen from anybody. So I want to thank you as always, Ethan, for being my co-host now for our 3rd episode. I'm looking forward to joining you again next week. Looking forward to joining all of our fans and everybody next week as well. With that being said, guys, that has been another episode of Saturday Standouts.